let's look at solving one-step equations. Alright, with one-step equations, we've got a few definitions I want to go over. One is the solution of an equation. The solution of an equation is going to be a value, or sometimes a couple of values, of the variable that make the equation true. So when you plug this solution in, or several solutions, you will actually make the equation true. Now, equivalent equations are equations that actually have the same solution or same solutions. So they're going to have the same answers. Inverse operations are operations that undo one another. So adding something to undo the addition, you need to subtract it. Same thing with multiplication. To undo multiplication, you do division, and vice versa. Now, the golden rule of algebra, we always call this, whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you must do to the other side of the equal sign. Kind of like the golden rule of life. What you do on to somebody else, or what one does to you, you do upon yourself. This is the same thing. So what we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the next side of the equation. Now, when we solve using inverse operations, the objective that we're trying to meet is to get the variable positive and on one side the equal sign by itself. So, in this one, I have x minus 8 equals 4. So I'm going to pretend like there's a brick wall going down that equal sign. I can't cross over unless I'm undoing something, like untying a shoe. So what I do to this side of the equal sign, and this line kind of tells you which side's what, I must do to this side. So to undo the subtract 8, I need to add 8. It's the opposite. So I'm going to add 8, not just to this side, but also to this side. So 4 and 8 give me 12. Now, to double check to make sure I get the answer, I need to plug in 12 for x to see if it gives me the correct answer. You always need to check your work. You can turn in a test and know if you made 100 or not by doing this simple check, and you'll know if you truly did get the right answer. Now here I've got my original equation, x minus 8 equals 4. I'm going to check that by putting in 12. Now notice I put 12 in parentheses. That way, if it was a negative 12, I keep the negative with the 12. So I do 12 minus 8, and that's 4. Since both sides equal 4, that is a correct answer. Okay, let's look at some others. We have negative 18 plus y equals 12. Draw my line so I know I've got to do it to both sides. Now I have a negative 18. To make it go to the other side, it's kind of like subtract 18, so I need to make that 0 to undo it or untie it. So I need to add 18. I'm going to add 18 to both sides. Remember, do to one side, you've got to do the other. 12 and 18 is 30. Now let's see if this actually adds up correct. So if I do negative 18 plus y equals 12, this is my original. Okay? I'm going to do negative 18 plus 30, notice I put in parentheses, equals 12. Now negative 18 and 30 is 12, so my answer's good. This third one, I do my line so I know which side of the equation's which. Now I have negative 5 times n equals 25. Remember, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I got to undo this. I need to divide each side by a negative 5. Now notice, 25 divided by negative 5 is negative 5. So all I need to do to know if my answer is correct is plug in negative 5 for n. So we do negative 5 times negative 5, and we know that is 25. Gracie, no! Now, number 4. I have m divided by negative 2 equals negative 10. I draw my line so I know I do both sides. Now, m divided by negative 2. Division, the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply each side by negative 2. When I do negative 2 times m over negative 2, that's going to give me a 1m, or just m. Then I do negative 10 times 2, that's going to give me a 20. Now I need to make sure I did it correctly. Plug in 20 for m, so I end up with 20 divided by negative 2. And 20 divided by negative 2 does equal negative 10. Both sides equal negative 10, so it is correct. This last one, I need to draw my line because I definitely need to make sure what I do to one side, I do to the other. Now, I have 3/4 times x equals 9. Now, to undo multiplication is division. But when I have a fraction, I can basically just flip the fraction, do the reciprocal, and multiply. Because that's really what you're doing when you're dividing fractions. So I'm going to get the reciprocal, which is 4/3. And remember, if I do 4/3 times 3/4, that's 1. So I'd have 1x. Multiply 9 by 4/3. So 9 times 4 is 36. And that's like a 9 over 1 if it was a fraction. And 1 times 3 is 3. Now I've got 1x over here, which is the same thing as x. 36 over 3 I can simplify, and that's 12. Now I need to check my work. 3/4 times 12 does equal 9, so that answer is correct. Alright, let's look at some practice. This first one, I've got negative 3.5 equals m minus 2.5. Now, opposite of subtraction is addition. So I draw my line, so I do make sure I do it on both sides. I'm going to add 2.5 to both sides. When I add 2.5 to negative 3.5, I get 1, or negative 1 for m. To check it, plug it back in. Using my original equation, negative 1 minus 2.5 does give me a negative 3.5, so my answer is correct. This next one, k plus 3/11 equals 8/11. Well, to get rid of this 3/11, move it to the other side. I do the opposite, which is subtraction. So I subtract negative 3/11 on both sides. And negative 8 over 11 minus 3/11 is actually 5/11. Check my work, and you notice that both sides equal each other. So I'm good. It is correct. Now this next one, y minus negative 4 equals 6. Now we know, due to adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers, that I can do keep, make this subtraction a plus, make this negative 4 becomes a positive 4. And notice you're adding a 4, is the same thing as subtracting a negative. So it makes it a little bit easier. Now I know, since this is adding a positive 4, to move it to the other side, I need to subtract it. So I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides of my line. That gives me y on this side and 2 on that side. Now I need to check my work. So I'm going to plug in 2 for y, so 2, and my original equation was subtract negative 4 equals 6. Now remember, 2 minus negative 4 is the same thing as 2 plus a positive 4. We know 2 and 4 is 6, and 6 equals 6, so we are good. Our answer is correct. Number 4, we have r divided by negative 3 equals negative 101. I need to draw my line to make sure I do it on both sides of the equal sign. Now this is division. Opposite of division is multiplication. So I multiply each side by negative 3. I just get r on this side equals, now negative 101 times negative 3 is a positive 303. Now to double check at my work, I want to know if I'm correct. I need to check it. I do a positive 303 divided by a negative 3. See if that equals a negative 101. And it does. So my answer is correct.